What's going on, YouTube? We're going to take a spotlight today at my newest Hinderer. We're going to take a closer look at this particular model and just kind of talk about and look at it, because I love looking at my knives. I love looking at all knives. But we're going to talk about and really go into detail on this particular one because, I just got it. So I love it. I've been carrying it a lot. And yeah, I think it deserves its own video. Haven't seen a lot of the harpoons on YouTube, so I figured I'd give this guy a quick little sneak peek for everyone. Not talk too much about it, but because they're pretty much the same as the other ones, just the blade grind's different. But yeah, I thought it was cool enough and worthy enough to have its own video, so let's get right into it. So this is the 3-inch Harpoon Tanto with an orange scale, 3-inch, and I did a little bit of my own. Hinderer knives always says make it your own, so that's what I did. So I put a copper lock bar stabilizer, one of the new copper lock, oh geez, I can't talk, copper filler tabs, 1-hole filler tabs, and a copper standoff. Not just a copper, but 3 of them. And yeah, so this one's mine. I kind of gave it this kind of like, orangey feel. I really love copper, so wanted to have at least one of my Hinderers kind of have that feel. And I know that they're going to release, they already released copper 3.5 titanium liners. So this side's all copper, so I may consider getting that. I kind of like the look of, decking this out with copper, so why not? Get a nice patina. So anyways, so this is the Harpoon Tanto. Take a look at that, guys. So this particular knife, obviously I have 5. As soon as I saw this, even though I had 5 at the time, I had to get this one. The Harpoon Tanto has been almost a grail of mine ever since he did that with his custom knives. This particular grind, I've just been in love with it. I loved how aggressive it was with this harpoon, the upper swedge, just that aggressive tip. And as an XM18, I think the lines of it just flow perfectly. It just looks awesome. This is the original Hinderer design, Sponto. So you can see, everything has a banana shape to the handle. Kind of curves down. I think swoops down really nicely. A nice drop point. Has a nice flow of lines. And I think with that, the harpoon kind of has its own kind of cool lines as well. The nose kind of dips down, comes to a really nice and useful and sharp point. I mean, if you take a look, these are kind of almost like opposites, because if you take a look at that Sponto tip, look how much thicker, look how much more meat and steel you have, material right behind the tip. Again, this is only a 3-inch, so it's, even the spear point that is a straight grind toward the end. Look at that tip. That tip is really thick. Compare that with the other 3-inch, which is the Warney. Pretty close. I feel like this is a little bit thicker, I feel like. But I was very, very pleased, to say the least, that this one had actually a thin tip. Like I was saying, the lines of this just flow really nicely, and this grind in particular, I've actually had really nice success with it. It's a really good everyday kind of cutting tool grind. So I know originally the Sponto was kind of supposed to be like a beefy, really meaty, just punch it through a car door and pry it open like the jaws of life. Those are originally what it was intended to. But for me, they're just kind of everyday carry tools. But this one in particular has been very, very useful. Just with the summer, just using this for like barbecue and grills, prepping food, open up, packages of hot dogs, bacon, burgers, buns. It's really, really useful. And I like actually using this almost secondary tip right here, down here, almost like a little X-Acto knife, if that makes any sense. So you just have really good control. You can kind of just almost make just really exact cuts. I mean, when you're prepping food, when you're even like cutting paper, it's actually very useful. And then another thing I noticed about this, excuse me, is when I got this, the screws were nice and shiny, which is very welcome actually. Kind of gave it a really nice finish to it. If you look at my other one, these are the older ones, and you see it's kind of matted and grayed out. I don't know if they stonewash these or put them in a tumbler or something, but they're definitely not as shiny as these, the handle screws. But when I got this, handle screws and pivot screw was nice and shiny. I mean, it may wash out in the light over there, but you see, it was like almost like mirror polish. It looked amazing, just looked really beautiful when I got it. And yeah, I mean, obviously that quickly went away, just going in your pocket and all, but just getting this out of the box, it was like the first time I was actually like, oh wow, that looks nice. Speaking of which, this is kind of how it fits in the pocket, so you wouldn't even notice the difference unless you just look toward the end. You'd be like, wait, that doesn't look right. And if you have a really keen eye, you would notice a 3-inch. You'd be like, oh my god, it's a new Harpoon Tanto. So not a lot's changed. I didn't see anything new with this run, except that, you know, I mean, my eye saw this. It's like, it's hard to tell on camera, but the stonewashing on this is really awesome. That's the only way I can put it. It's just done very well. I mean, this is my older one. I had this one for over 2 years now, but as you can see, I don't know if you can kind of see it. Like, there's a little bit of surface grinding. Yeah. Oh, I had it like 2 seconds ago. At a certain angle, you can see it, and it's kind of deep. It's all right. I mean, I don't care, but you can kind of see it at that angle. You see, there's like surface grind lines. I mean, who cares, right? But you know, you get a new knife, you're like, oh man. And honestly, I can't even tell if there's anything else, but I did notice that, and I was like, oh well. But all the more reason to use it, right? So you can kind of see it at that angle. But this one, I mean, when I got this, it was just perfect. Absolutely perfect. I mean, I can't even tell. You can't even tell that it was like surface ground, but it was beautiful. And then the other thing I noticed is that, so on the newer models, they're actually doing this extra milling down here in the lock bar cutout. From what I understand, it's kind of how Hinderer likes to almost identify fakes. I think the Chinese ones don't go to this level of detail of like really machining down there, and his model here, the 3-inch, doesn't have that. But maybe on the 3 inches they don't do that. And as you can see, this is the one pin, or I can't say what this thing is. It is a 1-hole filler tab, copper. Does that look nice? Gives it a nice kind of clean look. And just this sliding in and out of your pocket, having one screw is awesome. But anyway, yeah, so the flipping action obviously is on point. It's very smooth. Obviously, I had to kind of tune it a little bit, get it to where I like it. But it's just, like, look at that. It just falls freely. Very nice. And obviously, this is the newer one, so it's the harder detent. I've said this in other videos. I don't like the harder detents because they just fly right open. Whereas this one, which has more of the older style detent, you can just thumb it open nice and quiet. No one knows. You got a knife. Boom, cut your sandwich. You're done. This one, people think, oh my god, it's an automatic. But yeah, I love looking at this knife. I catch myself. You ever just do that, just like staring at it and appreciating it? I mean, I have no complaints about this knife. The only thing I'll mention, which I have seen on 3 inches for some reason, is this grind here. So the primary grind, see how it doesn't line up with this edge? Okay, maybe it's like too much light, but This line goes down to, looks like about here, right? Okay, that's a better light. So that line goes about here, but the edge goes here. I've noticed on a few other people's 3 inches. Not a big deal. Again, I don't care. I'm just being nitpicky. A lot of people are being nitpicky. Oh, and I forgot to mention before, this is an S35VN. Great steel. Hinderer does a superb job with his S35VN. No complaints. Super highly corrosive resistance. Never had an issue with this finish with any type of rust. I live in a very humid environment right here on the East Coast, so always an issue, but never with this knife. And his S35VN really has a great edge, so no complaints. Was very happy actually to get that. It's a very EDC friendly knife, or blade. Steel. Blade steel. And yeah, like, I mean, for me in the summertime, the 3-inch is the way to go. I mean, I do love my 3.5 inch, don't get me wrong. This still is winning the battle of most carried knife, but in the summertime, it's so much lighter, it's so much easier, and it's perfect. It's a great EDC knife. I highly recommend this knife. Let me just get a quick size comparison. And then a comparison of the blade grind. Sponto, I've shown that. Warncliffe. Get out of here. Let's do the Warncliffe comparison. And my Sparrow. So one thing you can easily tell by looking at a Hinderer is the screws. If you look at a screws, you can almost kind of tell if it's a 3-inch just looking at it. Also, where the pocket clip rests on the lock bar stabilizer. So if this where this bend comes down, if that goes past lock bar stabilizer, that's a 3-inch. If it goes almost right over it, that's your 3.5 inch. And if this bend goes like here, and you can totally see the lock bar stabilizer completely, that's going to be XN24. So if you're looking at pictures, and because I have small, wimpy hands, every knife looks huge in my hand. Like this looks huge probably to you guys. You're probably like, oh man, nice 3.5. I'm like, no, it's a 3-inch. It's like, oh man, nice 24. No, it's 3.5. Always look for the screws. The screws will give you a good idea of, I think, in my opinion, every time I look at pictures, I can always tell what's a 3.5 and what's 3 inches. Looking at like screws, how they space them. Pretty good eye for that. And obviously, best giveaway is that. Look for that. But yeah, that's the video, guys. I just really want to give a quick spotlight, not a review, because if I give a review of this knife, it'll be just totally biased. And I'm actually really digging. I forgot to mention that the fit and finish on this is amazing. They've really stepped up their game, Hinderer, but I mean, look at the laser etching on that. Look at that horsey guy. Isn't that sick?